This is the Raw and Radical Women in the Arts podcast, and I am your host, Maureen Broadbeck.
Raw, unprocessed.
In each episode, we explore the mechanisms of identity, vulnerability, authenticity, empowerment, and social change through conversations with inspiring women who are making history and challenging the status quo in both the art world and in society.
Radical, rebel. Progressive.
We talk about their real-life challenges and celebrate cis and transgender women so that you can be inspired, empowered, take action, and further your critical understanding about what it means to be a woman in the arts.
Woman, feminism. A revolutionary catalyzing reformation. Radical.
Chus Martinez is a Spanish curator, author and lecturer. She studied art and philosophy. She was a chief curator at El Museo del Barrio in New York, the chief curator at MACBA Barcelona, the director of the Frankfurter Kunstverein, and the artistic director of Sala Recalde Bilbao. Chus Martinez curated the National Pavilion of Catalonia with the filmmaker Albert Serra for the 56th Biennale in Venezia in 2015. She was the curatorial advisor for the Carnegie International and in 2010 for the 29th Biennale of Sao Paulo, amongst other projects. She writes regularly for numerous catalog texts and critical essays. She's a regular contributor to Art Forum, amongst other international journals. She is also the founder of the Deutsche Börse residency program for international artists, art writers, and curators. She was the expedition leader of The Current, a project initiated by the TBA 21 Academy. Chus Martinez is the head of the Institute Art, Gender, Nature and the head of the Bachelors in Fine Art at the FHNW Academy of Arts and Design in Basel. She is also the chief curator at Der Tank, the Institute exhibition space in Basel, where she oversees a series of special commissioned exhibitions. And since 2021, she is the artistic director of Ocean Space Venice. Please welcome Chus Martinez to the show. Hi, Chus. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, thank you.
I would like you to talk a little bit about your background to beginning so people understand where you're coming from. And so I was wondering, what were your first experience with art and in the arts, and what were your first inspiration? Why did you choose to be part of the art world?
I didn't. I was a philosophy student.
Yeah.
And my advisor, tutor, at that moment decided to make an exhibition with Dennis Hopper, you know, the American actor.
Yeah.
And Bigas Luna. The thing is that Barcelona at that moment was a very active city and very active in cinema as well.
Yeah.
Bigas Luna was a fantastic filmmaker. And he was the neighbor of my advisor, who was a philosopher, but very much in love with the arts and this kind of crowd. And Bigas decided to invite Dennis Hopper to present his paintings in Barcelona. And then they decided that, well, the smart-ass kind of student that was me should curate that exhibition. And they just put me into that situation. My English was so poor. Their English was even worse. Nobody expected him to say yes, but he did. And then he came with his family and his paintings. And for him, it was very important to present his paintings. And all of a sudden, we have an incredible amount of press. So it was like, you know, something in between, ridiculous and beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have lots and lots of fun. So that was kind of my first exhibition that I don't know why I never really mentioned or talk about it or even put in the curricula, because I thought I was like, it was an accident, you know, when you're a poodle and then you invite the poodle to curate.
Yeah.
So I was kind of there in the office of my doctor advisor, and then I was just pushed into that type of thing, and it was just hilarious. And then after, it was on and on, this kind of episodes where I end up asked by my teachers to curate. So I did an exchange with Germany, and then I decided, oh my God, this is so difficult. I can't really not talk in German very well. And I applied to a Fulbright, and I end up studying in Columbia University. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
The philosophy department was kind of a little bit obsolete. So I ended up into the Middle Eastern department, and the Middle Eastern department was directed by Hamid Avashi, who was a teacher and an incredible expert in Iranian cinema. And then he ended up asking me, but why don't we do an exhibition about Iranian cinema at the center of the campus? And I thought, but do I have written in my face, ask me to organize an exhibition type of thing?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how it all started, just by this kind of coincidence of people outside the art organizing and asking me to do it. And it continued, and I love it.
So it was pursuing you until you became a curator.
Yeah,
Really?
kind of.
Yeah.
I never became a curator, still there.
But you are challenging this definition of what it is to be a curator.
Well, some people really love to be it, and I respect it, but I still feel that I don't really operate or act as a curator by the book. So I still feel that I introduced too many elements that were not or are not named in the discipline. I did study art history, and I also never mention it in my curricula. I think my main motivation to study art history is that, yeah, the students in the art history department seem much more open and the men much more beautiful. So I end up sitting there. So, so I don't know. I think I just judge my own motivations and evaluate if they are, if they entitle me to proceed with certain activities. So, yeah, I don't feel much like a curator. I feel as somebody in between many fields that love to organize exhibitions because the work with artists is
Yeah.
fantastic. And I love to produce artworks, and I think I'm good at it. Yeah, some other people are much more historical, much more tied to certain organization forms.
But I think that's what also makes your work so interesting, is because you are rethinking this practice, of what a curator should be and could be and can do, and how to understand the role of the artistic practice and of curation. And I think that's really interesting because you did a lot. You have an incredible resume. And then I was wondering, what were your greatest challenge in really the way you brought all these new ideas to life about what we can do with curation?
Well, I'm still thinking a lot about it, also because, now after the pandemic, we are going to face, and we are facing already, like some audience not feeling like we are losing the audience in certain institutions because it's difficult to do certain things and activities in our museums and art spaces. So I'm wondering if you can eat in an exhibition. I wonder if you can date in an exhibition. I wonder if you can work in an exhibition. I wonder if you can actually plant plants in an exhibition. So I'm still thinking a lot about what can you bring to the middle of that incredible public space that
Yeah.
I totally love and respect. And also because you are experiencing an incredible increase in control and controlling and love for organization and organizing and labeling, what I call the Marie Kondo of our society. So the socks need to be really, really perfect into that kind of part of your wardrobe. I think that the exhibition as a format and as a space is still an incredible freedom space. So
Yeah.
it's worth to investigate what else can we do? How can we bring teenagers? How can we do things that are supposed not to be done there? How can we still provide safety and also activity at the same time? We are talking about safe spaces. Definitely, an exhibition is a safe space, even if sometimes it confronts you with values and even works that you may not like. It's a space that protects both those visiting and also those exhibiting. It's a question ahead of us. How can we introduce different social dynamics that disentangle the exhibition from that perception that's still very static, that may be boring, that I can not really bring anything from home into the exhibition space. So it would be really interesting, probably in 100 years, to see the hybrid forms that exhibitions are.
Yeah.
Or how can we, for example, have offices or co-working spaces inside museums, and things like that are not unthinkable. So as a curator, I reflect a lot into those possibilities and scenarios.
Yeah, this is very interesting because you believe in the power of art to drive social changes. And I was wondering, could you talk about this and explain how do you see this happening? Because I think it's really important to talk about this, not only for artists to understand how impactful their work can be, especially women artists, but also for a more general audience, because art is quite often disregarded from the general audience to be really important in society. And I think it is.
It's not a belief, it's a fact. I've seen it so many times. Life change because of exposure. So life does change because you get exposed to certain experiences that you may not be able to reflect on them or to even articulate them in language, and yet they stay with you in ways that you feel they are meaningful and they bring you some sort of peace of mind. Now people are asking themselves what's the sense of things,
Yeah.
even more than before,
Yeah.
because you keep on doing, you keep on proceeding, you keep on performing
Yeah.
socially, personally, and so on. And then you ask, but well, why I'm doing that? I think what's the gain? And then the other side of economy and capitalism would say otherwise it gets down, and then you would lose even the few privileges that you have been able to acquire, your job, your health, and so on and so forth. So you keep on doing that. There is a menace, and that menace motivates you to perform the role that has
Yeah.
been given to you. So I think that it's absolutely worth to reflect upon the fact that art is not prescribing you to do anything in particular. And then there is an incredible mutuality that gets established in between you and even your dislike of it and it. And the fact that you get an exposure that is for you to retranslate into your own life in the manner you want. So you are absolutely free to go home and say, fuck, I hated that. How could the artist do this? Or you could be
Yes.
absolutely indifferent, or you could love it. But in the three cases, your experience, you are free to actually adapt it into your own language. In the three cases, perhaps less in the indifference one, you would be able to think about also, even in the indifference case, why are you not moved by it? How come that I don't feel anything about this? Or how come I do feel so much? Or I do feel so antagonic? And this is really something that adds to your life, adds to the conversations. And many people 10, 15 years ago, when I was saying, I really want to be called Frosch, like call me Frog. Like when I was a student in Germany, they wanted, like, my first job in Germany, they wanted to call me Frau Martinez. And I thought, coming from Spain, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be called Frau Martinez. And then I said, call me Frog Martinez, Frosch Martinez. I really prefer that. Like I would prefer to be called as an animal than as a human that is not adapting to the system of a culture that's not mine. So I'm not German, so don't call me that way. And those people were looking at me like, wow, she's such extravagant. I'm just saying that these days, for sure, these people would stop thinking I'm extravagant and start thinking that there is a point in me assimilating nature in ways that they also feel. And
Yeah.
also that people are rescuing those feelings that they were perhaps, repressing, their love for nature, or walks in the forest, or touching stones, or touching leaves in the autumn, or
Yeah.
reflecting on colors thinking you are sentimental. But now everyone is kind of bringing up this sentiment and this sentient way of thinking about nature in ways that are much, much more present in our society. And they
Yeah.
were laughed about 20 years ago,
Yeah.
15 years ago, 10 years ago. So
Sure.
whose merit is that? I would say is the merit of art. I think it's really, really the merit of art is that they have been trying to create an environment where you are able to express something that was always there. It's only that you just did not push it into your work. You will not come to work and say, oh, for me, actually, to have a conversation with my plants and my pets is fundamental because that's how really I like to start the day. But today, many people trust themselves in thinking that there is a point in sharing life with animals and plants and sharing life with non-human entities and so on. So I think that art has an enormous impact in the way that we perceive our own possibilities, scenarios of future.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I feel like people need more this relationship and this connection with all their senses to really feel things more and to be more connected. Do you think that as a woman, you had different or more challenges than men when you faced in all the positions you had in your career?
I cannot talk on behalf of men, but on behalf of myself as a woman and many others that I know, yes, of course, I simply don't get the same chances. I think, if I give a talk sometimes or people talk about my work, they say that I have, wow, you are so passionate. But I actually would love to hear, oh, this article is so interesting and you are so interested. And question of relevance and influence when it comes to a woman is a complete different one. So you are very much still judged as an exception, and still you are tried not to be talking about. So it's very difficult. It's a fact. I'm not gonna say otherwise. And it's something that I continuously experience. So all the time you are perceived as yeah, special, but in a man you would say he is just so powerful and interesting, let's give him the job. And in a woman it's like, but I don't know, yes, but I don't know. So the doubt, this attachment of a certain weather of doubt is it's a condition that comes with our position economically and culturally, um, and it's difficult to get rid of or to
Yeah.
transform.
Yeah. This brings me to a word I would like to talk about because it's a long loved concept and it's the one of the genius. I'm going to quote you. You said, artists work collaboratively. They have for centuries. We need to discard the idea of the genius. And you said it's a bad metaphor for loneliness and power. Could you talk about this? Because it still exists.
Of course.
I hear it every other day. Oh, yeah, but he's a genius. And it's funny because in English, genius can work for men and women, but in French, it doesn't at all. You never hear the word genius. I don't know about Spanish.
Spanish is the same as French. It's something that it's also, it has a magical touch. It comes from this extra power that's given
Yeah.
to you, and
Yeah.
it comes from God to the king to the yeah to the genius, so the magician, the superpower man. It's not feminine at all. It's not non-binary at all. It's not fluid at all. It's very static. It stays in the vessel that contains it. So it just stays in a very defined individuality and identity as having a power that the others don't. It's kind of a pity not to reflect enough, and it's not only a question of language; it's a question of structures. And I
Yeah.
would say that the genius seed is not only in the language that gets used and spread and sprinkled into certain individuals and not others, but also in our administration. Our administration also acts as if certain moments of exceptionality and then
Yeah.
incredible moments of control. So certain individuals, they have as a community, as a collective, the role of controlling as a mother, as a wife, as a partner, and so on. And then the exceptional moment where something happens, it's given somewhere else. So, as I said, it's really a question that should be administratively considered, not only considered in the sense of a language that gets socially spread, which is also unfortunate. At the same time, even corporations, they cannot stop talking about co-creation, about
Yeah.
co-leadership, because they feel that it's very difficult to sustain certain levels of implementation of ideas and transformation of the social in their absolutely monoculture idea of leadership, no, like the leader, the soldier, on the horse type of person that sees beyond the horizon where the others
Yeah,
cannot see, and tells the group,
exactly. Yeah.
but advance, go, don't be afraid of risking, we are gonna win. So, and then now we experience a coexistence of these two clash models. Young people almost without jobs, opportunities, without even a language in the social, they can't see themselves as a class, as a social group, being absolutely considered. That bullshit leadership horse type of thing is just the one that's gonna, even kill the few opportunities that remain. Because, of course, if they don't unite, if they don't collaborate, and most of all, if they don't care for each other, life is impossible. There is no possibility of survival. So they see it with clairvoyance. They see also that while administration and capitalism wants absolute control in order to define
Yeah.
performativity and efficiency in the capitalistic system, they need to implement fluidity in their own bodies and genders, because otherwise they are completely entangled to the categories defined for them. So the streets of May 68 are today the bodies. So the revolution that we perceive with barricades and posters asking for freedom and rights are today the possibility and also the performativity of a body being non-binary, being fluid, having the possibility of the freedom of going from very different ends and coming back. So yes, it's a transformation that's definitely happening, and in my opinion, we are missing voices and heads able to articulate it properly so that people would have a picture of it and would understand better what are we facing and what can be done, because it's a really complex moment.
Yeah. Do you think we are really going towards more connection, more intersectional work, and kind of changing a bit, the word epistemology and what does it mean, with this whole theory of what we know and the validity of things? There's a shift, right?
Yes, but on the other hand, it's also true that we are still in a moment that the coexistence of many models is still there, and there is still the danger. I think I would refrain proclaiming that we are step by step progressing towards a fantastic horizon of equality and social justice, because it's much more, we are facing what science calls a complex model, where many systems are coexisting and they have
Yeah.
validity at the same time. We are seeing it, for example, every day, that there is incredible claims that are of immense relevance when it comes to, of course, fluidity and non-binarism in the sense of identity, but also social justice claims and ideas of collaborative and care in community organization, models
Yeah.
of organization that are much more sensitive to what the collective intelligence can create together. On the other hand, there is an incredible reactionary backlash in our society,
Yeah. Yeah.
disclaiming constantly that, and also going back to moments we never thought they would be facing, like the anti-vaccination movement, and people distrusting science in ways that are a little bit too radical, and even remind us that we were talking about radicalism in the social in relationship with religion, but we were never actually brought it to a more secular context. and
Yeah.
and it's an interesting question.
Yeah. 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 True. So you are currently the head of the Institute of Art of the FHNW Academy of Arts and Design in Basel, Switzerland. So why did you decide to work in the world of art and education?
Because after Documenta, it was very important to me to go closer to younger artists and to understand how transmission happened. And I must say, I don't regret it. I think I never thought that I would be perceived as abandoning curating, but of course, at the beginning, many people confronted me with that question. I always underestimate how conservative the art world is, and the
Yeah.
systems of the art world are so systematizing everything
Yeah, yeah.
in its right thing. So at the beginning, when I just started, I perceived myself as a still so curious person that I needed to go with with my nose close to the making of the arts and to the minds of younger people, that they may have a complete different understanding of what art needs to be. And I was confronted all the time with, but why are you abandoning the art world? I'm not abandoning anything. I'm just like, I'm just trying to see it from a complete different perspective, so
Yeah.
that when I organize exhibitions, I can take into account exactly that the forms of transmission that I was growing up with are obsolete, and new generations are bringing into the table complete different considerations. So that was my main motivation. I wanted to learn. It's so easy in our systems just to repeat what you know, because
Yeah, yeah.
you learn to a certain age and you had some succeed, as we have, I think, with Documenta 13. It was very successful, and it's super easy just to carry that on and then bring it and repeat it and repeat it and rehearse it and rehearse it. So it was fundamental for me to put me in a situation I knew so less about. And I was never been an educator. I don't really like to teach, and I don't think I'm very good at it. But I have other traits that I can bring into an art education school. And then I thought, hey, it's immense. While I was working in museums and art institutions, my colleagues were fantastic, but most of them were not artists. And here I have an environment where everyone is an artist. The teachers are artists and the students are artists. So, yes, it was a very egoistic move. I really wanted to be with them.
Oh, that's great. But I think also when you do things differently and you challenge a bit the norm, you also get out of the comfort zone of having validation from everyone around you. So
No, I think forget it. As a woman, doesn't matter. I think if you work towards validation, then it may not come, or you would encounter a beautiful wave of silence.
yes,
So they are never gonna quote you, because at the end of the day they will say, yes, but no, I don't know about her. She's a little bit, I don't know how to tell you. So doesn't matter. You need to do what you need to do. And the most important thing is that I perceive the art education context as one where I can invite many, help many,
yes,
and be
yeah,
generous with many. So this is something that I learned during Documenta, that my joy in life is, you could commission so much, you could invite so many. And I just don't want it out of my life, because it makes an incredible difference to create possibilities for others. Yeah, it's part of what I think I should do.
yeah. Because you're working right now on many different projects through this institution.
Yeah, and also outside. And I think that
Yeah,
because I learned a little bit, I had, a even more naive and, let's say, infantile approach. So I became younger. So I was always a little bit infantile, but now I'm completely infantile and teenager, and completely, I don't assume many of the languages that I should assume by age and experience. So I still do mistakes, and I still think, oh God, I'm doing that. So I I love to be in that kind of position of vulnerability, and being able to still think, oh, but I don't know nothing about it. And and in that sense, the exchange with others becomes really meaningful, because I'm here because I learned so much from the students. The students have so incredible ideas and energies that you can learn from, and then mature in a way as a curator again. So you can become, in these seven
yeah,
years of being
yeah,
here, I just start realizing things again. This moment of
yeah.
realization. And this helped me to work in the ocean space in Venice. Now I'm working with another foundation that is dedicated to generous listening and transmission. So that would not be possible if I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
surrounded by these incredible students.
Yeah. True. You work also with the Zux Museum.
Yes, we collaborate for at least 3 years. Now we are closing in the
Yeah.
cycle. And we created an incredible program that is continuing, which is
Yeah.
exploring the role of art education in the making of women artists and artists in general. I think it's not
Yeah.
only about women. I think we said woman because everyone departs from its own concerns, and also my upbringing and my educational upbringing still roots me a little bit in historical feminism, but definitely is not only about that. It's also about, yeah, non-binarism. I'm doing that together with Queen Latimer, and the expression of this program are two international symposia that take place twice a year in the
Yeah.
springtime and in the autumn. Now we
Yeah.
are about to launch the autumn one in November. And yeah, it brings an enormous amount of joy. And as I said, you learn so much from the perspectives of artists and the practice on how to make a space, how to make coin a different language for things that you have been saying in a certain way, how not to complain, how to embrace and yet produce a space of yeah, possibility and motivation that you re-energize everyone, every gender. It's not about one gender, it's about all of them, and getting a sense of collaboration and implementation.
You are also a mother.
Yes,
Did
yes,
did
yes.
you ever encounter negative feedback in regards to that?
Oh, yes, of course. I think tell me one that didn't. And
Yes.
yeah, yeah, of course. When my son was 8 months, I was full in the Documenta team, and I remember the administrative team of the Documenta offices that they are now retired, and they were incredibly sweet. They in German they use the expression Rabenmutter. It's like a crow. It's a very negative expression that is like a mother that is really not taking is taking care as much of her own interest than the interest of the child, because I was not being at home working. So yes, I just many moments of people not believing it. I can name you thousands of anecdotes where people came even to visit me and said, "But what? I just experienced that you are a mother. I'm so sorry. I did not knew that." And what they meant by it was that we thought that you were like a really super hard. I don't know what type of woman, but having a child humanizes me. Like I also have this human dimension that I gained through motherhood, and that was given to me as a blessing from that speaker in my office that discovered I was a mother. So enormous amount of comments. Also, you will see life will change. You need to set priorities, meaning get out of the job market and please
Yeah.
leave a space for others. So and stop and go home. But
Yeah.
almost, and now my students, and that's one of the things that make me happy, is that I can contribute with my own experience and narrative and storytelling a little bit with all these incredible artists, young women that want to have a child. And I always say you can have whatever you want, in the sense that the perception you cannot modify, so you need to make your own decisions. And people are always going to confront you with a bunch of negative narratives to scare you and to modify your behavior towards motivation, so that they would actually try to conflict you, so that you lose a little bit of time dealing with this conflict, instead of investing in things that you consider
Yeah.
super important. So it's a very difficult topic still today.
So what do you think that is? What do you think that people really try to discourage you from doing all this? Where does that come from? Really curious
It
about
comes from the
understanding it.
beautiful old conflict of leave that space for others. Like, please go home. So, the idea that we may not be, yeah, I think, what are we losing if you stop working? So, it's many things. It's a power war that's still actual in many ways. Yeah, genders not being equal, and the fear that socially and economically would have exactly the same position as us.
Do you have any tips or advice for a woman artist, a woman in the art, other curators, or anybody that wants to participate in changing for the better the art world and making it grow?
To really, really be generous and listen to other women, and before the production of any form of antagonism with anybody, but particularly the same gender, reconsider it twice, see from where this antagonism may come, and reprogram it and try to create as much and many alliances as you can with your own peers. Only those in the same situation with similar experiences can actually help you, encourage you, protect you, and give you advice. So there is no better group than those feeling in similar ways as you are. So just produce solidarity with everyone, but particularly with those that you think perhaps you are never consider you are better than anybody, of course, but eliminate any form of arrogance that you may made it and others don't. So all this kind of pyramidal thinking, leadership thinking of the past, try to eliminate it. Use meditation to reflect on those prejudices, languages, and try to have an incredible amount of friendships of all genders. But ask yourself how many friends, how deep they are, and how much can you open up to them, because this is really key. It's the most important capital to assure a transformation.
Thanks. There's just one last thing I would like to talk about. I have this publication called The Society for Matriarchal Word Domination. And there is a little article you wrote with Julieta Aranda.
Yes, yes, with Julieta, of course.
Yeah, it's called Humanimal.
Yeah.
And I would like to just read the first two sentences because I think it's so important to reflect on this. And it's about the place of man in society and humanity and the world, actually. So this is what you wrote. There is a problem with humanism. It placed the man at the center of the picture. True, it has a placeholder for all of us, and yet it is not. And I think that with what you said earlier, with men, having a bit of a domination role in our world, but yet we need to be in contact and respect all the other living beings on the planet. I think that's something so important. And I think we're getting back towards that. Yeah, I was wondering if you can talk about your reflection on this.
Yeah, and men are also so touched by it, in the sense that many also want to get, many don't, but many also want to be reprogrammed and be part of a different world. And I'm
Yeah.
surprised how much they want to work towards it. So the most beautiful part of doing and reflecting on it collectively is not only the solidarity that we may find among those that think and feel the same as we do, but among those that actually were not knowing from where some uncomfort was coming, and they see their lives change because of that conversation, and they see also their gender roles change because of that conversation. So for me, it's very rewarding to be sitting together with young male students and listening to them, reflecting on how free they feel after spending some time investing into this reflection and reprogramming of their own behavior and so on, and even not only as artists but as partners, as fathers, how
Yeah.
much being in the institute did change them in a positive way, and how much they learn and how they feel as ambassadors for a completely different way of defining gender. So that I value a lot, because I know
Yeah.
it's not easy, and we are all only partly responsible for our upbringing and for our cultural context. We are absolutely responsible for future actions, and we are responsible for becoming aware of the micro impact that we can have in our everyday. But I think that in this togetherness, everyone counts, also those that may not at all think like us. I'm repeating that to our students, but sometimes we encounter so much antagonism in communities that think completely different, but it's important to get exposed. And that's perhaps my criticism to cancel culture. I was educated listening to many people and individuals, and cancel culture felt at all connected. And it's important to know about it so that you don't think you are living in a niche and you can change much more than you can. So the real transformation is also to open up and be able
Yeah.
to be tolerant with those
Yeah.
thinking completely different.
Yeah. And this is something a lot of people have a hard time to do.
Everyone, and I understand, and it's an exercise, but I think you should be encouraged those encounters, because you also go home thinking, how can that be possible?
Yeah.
But I am certain that this is symmetrical, and that there is at least a moment of doubt running through the systems that may help, if not in this generation, in the coming ones, to change it. So,
Yeah.
also, it's true, we cannot have all the impact we wish in one generation and in one go. But it did change. I'm telling my
Yes.
students how much it changed. I was raised and educated in a complete different context. Certain things I could not even name. Certain books, they were dismissed in my face, and definitely they would not listen to me and my concerns in the same respectful way that we are listening to them, or trying to, at least. So I think that it's important to see things into historical perspective.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode with Chus Martinez. This was a wonderful conversation that broadened many ideas about what it means to be a curator in today's society. I encourage you very much to go check out her work to learn more about how she challenges curation and how she leads the way to invent new tools to imagine the future of curation. This podcast is supported by Pro Helvetia, the Swiss Arts Council, the Republic and Canton of Geneva, and the city of Nancy in Switzerland. We are so thankful for their support and commitment to women, culture, and the arts. Thanks for listening to Raw and Radical Women in the Arts podcast. Learn more about our featured artists and sign up for news and updates by visiting our website rawradical.com.
Organic, radical, profound.
Please consider leaving us a comment and review on your preferred podcast listening platform to help others discover the show and take part in this global dialogue.
She, intuitive.
I am Maureen Broadbeck,
Fatal.
and until next time, keep the dream alive.
Woman.